I would love to kick this off just by getting right into Fox NFL Sunday. That's how I stumbled on you. So every week, Fox NFL Sunday for the football fans, those that aren't football fans, they do sketches on the Terry Bradshaw, Michael Strahan show. And I kept seeing UCB people, and I'm like, who is writing these? Terry Bradshaw's not writing these. Who's coming up with this? And I reached out to a few people like Dave Tooney, and he's like, oh, it's Jason Palmer. He used to do improv.
Yeah.
And then I reached out. How did you stumble on that gig? It's so crazy. That show's been going on for so long.
Well, I'll tell you. I was a sitcom writer for like 10 years. And then I was out of work for like a few years. And then I'm in this Facebook group. It's like paid LA TV jobs.
Okay. And
someone I know like posted like, they were like, hey, this isn't for me, but this is on the Fox website. And it said, Fox, NFL on Fox looking for a comedy writer. And I was like, and I'm a huge football fan. So I was like, what is that? What do they need a comedy writer for? So it was literally like, send in a resume and any like supporting material you might have. So I just sent in a resume, and I was doing a lot of sketch stuff at UCB at the time, and Groundlings and IO, and so I did have like some sports related sketches, and I set them in, and then I like forgot about it. And I remember I was married at the time. I remember telling my wife, I was like, they're not going to hire some random. And then I started going on the internet and looking up, like, what stuff do they do? And like Rob Riggle had like a segment,
and Kimmel before that,
and then Frank Caliendo, and then I was like, oh, it must be for that. Like, and then I remember telling my ex-wife, I was like, they're not going to hire some outside guy. I was like, they're probably just posting that because they legally have to or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right, honestly.
And then I completely forgot about it. And then one day I got some call from Fox HR, and then they called me in, and they were just verifying all my employment and stuff.
Okay.
And then I think like another 2 weeks went by, and then I had a meeting with the executive producer, and then he just had questions, and then just about my experience and stuff, and they liked that I had been doing sketch comedy because that's exactly what they wanted, and they wanted someone who like could cast these things, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing all that already.
Yeah.
Groundlings and UCB, and then they sent me examples of stuff they were doing, and then they asked me to go home and pitch some ideas, and I took the weekend and I put a lot of work into it, and then I sent them ideas. Then I had like another interview like a week later, and then I got hired.
That's amazing.
And then I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never worked in live TV before, and they just like threw me into it. Luckily, they have like a great crew of people that have been doing it for a while, like a great DP and great editors. So those guys really helped me in the beginning. And so there's two comedy segments on that show. Rob Riggle had like a 2-minute segment.
Yep.
And then they had something called the Fox 45, which is a 45-second sketch.
Okay.
And that's what they had me doing.
Yeah. So a couple questions for you to follow up. So from the moment you applied to when you got hired, how much time was that? You made it sound like it was a while.
When I started, it's probably two months, maybe a little more.
Okay. And then was this a position they had previously and you were replacing somebody,
Yes.
or were they determining that they needed to create something?
There was this guy, Bernie Kim, who had worked there forever, and he was doing these short comedy pieces, and he moved on to another show. He still worked there, but he moved on to another show on the network.
Got it.
And then and they were looking, someone to take his spot.
Got it. I had always assumed, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought Riggle and like Kimmel and Caliendo were writing their own stuff. Were they not?
No, they have writers.
Okay.
Well, so I know this because the guy who used to write for Kimmel still works there. So it started as Kimmel's spot,
right?
And 94, I think, and I think he had it to like 2000 or something, and then. So Kimmel would write it when I think Cousin Sal would write it with him, and then there was another friend of his who's still at Fox, Jim Bresca who would write his segments, and then when it was Frank Caliendo, was actually the person who's the executive producer now, was writing them for him.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I'm sure
he pitched in, yeah, of course.
I'm sure he would help too, but and then
because I'm thinking like Caliendo is such a specific thing to him that I wouldn't imagine a lot of other people can write in his voice like he can.
Yeah, I think this person at Fox wrote most of the stuff. I'm sure he had input, but and then when it was Rob Riggle, he had a couple.
That makes
writers.
sense. Yeah. But you just said you're not used to live TV, but everything you're filming though is pre-recorded. You said on Friday, I think, right? So what do you mean I wasn't prepared for live TV? I
would have to go in on Sundays, and I was like
tough.
Literally no one I hate to say this, but no one helped me at all.
Oh, interesting.
And then so they
trial by fire.
I was in my first day the show was on Sunday mornings. In my first week of work, somebody mentioned coming in on the weekends, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, we have to work weekends? And they're like, yeah, that's when the show is. And I was like, I didn't think I had to be here when the show aired.
I would agree with you. I thought that was the case, honestly.
So literally, I had started the job before I realized, I got to come in on weekends. And then,
that's funny.
So, I was in the control room on Sundays, and this live show's going on, and it's craziness in the control room, and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, I had worked before that mostly as a writer. I had directed some stuff and mostly my own stuff, but now I was like really heavily involved in the post-production process and all that stuff. It's mostly, I wasn't used to all that.
But what are you doing specifically on a Sunday? Are you doing anything? Are you feeding them jokes or anything in the real time?
Technically, yeah, they would want you to do that, but I never really did. And then I wouldn't do a whole lot on Sundays, to be honest. What I used to do is, do you watch football?
Oh yeah, of course.
So if you're ever watching the games on Fox, it'll be like 2 minutes ago before the half, and the announcers will go, let's go to Kurt Menefee and see what's coming up on the Verizon halftime.
Sure.
And they'll cut to Kurt Menefee, and it'll be like, coming up on the Verizon halftime, we'll talk about this game. They wanted to start making those a little funny.
Of course, yeah.
So they were having me do those.
Oh, cool.
Which was hard because they're 15 seconds, and you got to get information out and somehow make them funny. And they were it was very stressful. And I would have to do those because you would film them like 20 minutes before they go on air.
Yeah.
Because you'd want to like put in information that we'll talk about that fumble that happened or something. Right. And then it's very stressful because you're filming them like 20 minutes before it goes on air, and then you're using these hosts who are wanting to watch the game, so they're kind of like you're kind of having to pull them away. And then I was so bad at doing those that they took me off.
That's hilarious. So are you still going in on Sundays?
I don't have so then COVID and going in. I'm gonna be honest. Going in on Sundays was the worst part of my job.
That's funny.
I'd be there like 6 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. And then I loved the job. I always said this would be the best job in the world if I didn't have to come in on Sundays. And then when COVID happened, they started limiting who had to come into work. And they were like, to me, they're like, we'll get someone else to do those things. Like, you don't have to come in Sundays anymore. And then COVID ended, and no one told me to start coming back in. I went in this last Sunday, but I didn't. They don't ask me to. I just went in because it's kind of fun to see these things air at work and see people's reaction to them. Because usually it's just me sitting at home watching them air, and I don't know how.
And you wonder how it goes.
Yeah.
Your one this Sunday was very good, by the way.
Oh, thank
Better than normal, I felt like. You really hit it this weekend. Like, it was
really?
like bam, 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 bam. Funny,
I feel like
funny.
This was just an average one this week.
Oh, really? I thought it was great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it was really good.
So, yeah, it's, I'll be honest, when I got this job, I was like, this is just going to be a temporary job for me.
And that was 2012?
No, like 2016.
Okay.
So this is my 7th season.
That's amazing.
And then they keep me on after football, and I do a lot of random stuff. Like, every NASCAR becomes the big thing there after football.
Yeah.
sometimes I will write like some NASCAR just bits for the hosts, but I don't have to produce those or shoot those. And then just a lot of random stuff. And but yeah, when I started, I thought it was going to be like a temporary job for me, like a 1-year job. And it's a really great job.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
Yeah.